Hello, my name's Sally, and I'm here at El Cajon Swanback, and we decided to do a block party, and this is one of our blocks for the block party. I call it a border block because you can narrow. And this is just a one where I had accidentally not cut these two strips big enough, so I added corners onto the outside, but it can make an interesting block. And I've left it intentionally a little bit large so that you can trim it down to the size block that you want. It You might be able to trim it to 8 finished. I think it is going to be 8 unfinished. Would be the biggest you could make. But you may be able to trim it to 8.5 unfinished. So these are just some different examples and different ways that you could put them together all sorts of different ways. Here's an example that I sewed together point to point for a border. And this was seven and a quarter. Just because that's what I trimmed it to. Okay, so let's get started and let me show you how to do this. Now, this is not, I am not writing an instruction for this. This is a video instruction, so you'll have all the instruction on this video and you can watch it as many times as you want. There is a transcription that you can download from the video if you would like. There's 4 parts to this. There is a 10-inch by 10-inch square. You need to cut 2 of them. These need to be placed right sides together because we need to make one more cut on this 10 by 10, or wrong sides together. In any case, you do not want to set these up right side up and right side up. So I would recommend placing them either right side together or wrong side together to start out with, so you do not forget and cut it wrong, like I did the last time, which is why we had the triangles on the edge. Okay, second thing you need to do is cut 2 pieces 6.5 by 4.5. And then you need to cut 4 pieces that are 3 by 5. Now these are not to scale. I just wanted to have it written out so that you could see it. 10 by 10, 2, 4.5 by 6.5, 2, 3.5 by 5, 4. Okay. The next thing we need to do is mark in from each side of this 10.5 block. We're going to mark in 5 3/4 from each side, 5 3/4 from each side. You needed to mark in 5 3/4 from one side, and then 5 3/4 from the diagonal side corner, so that when you draw from one of these points to the next point, these are not rectangles. Reason being, how we sew this is we're sewing this onto the square in the middle. So you see how it's going to be a little bit rectangular shape. We're sewing this onto this, and we need a odd shape. It wastes less fabric if we do this. So we're going to take our rotary cutter We're going to line the 2 points up. And we're just going to cut corner to corner. Now this gives us 2 sets of not identical pieces. So 2 of this side and 2 of that side. So there's 2 each. Of each of these pieces. And the straight side is going to go on to these pieces. So this is how these are going to be sewn together. These are your 2 middle pieces. And these are going to be sewn on with one corner connected evenly, like this, with another piece that hangs out to the side. Same with the bottom, only the opposite way. So this is your this is about a ½ inch wider than this. So this side sticks out and that side sticks out. Now when you put these right sides together, you want to be able to have the same shape when we sew these. So it's best if you line these up like this. So you have 2 of the 3x5 pieces at the top, 2 of the 3x5 pieces at the bottom, and the 2 4.5 by 6.5 pieces in the middle. You're going to sew with matching one corner to sew it across like that, and then the opposite corner on the bottom. So let's go to the sewing machine. All right, here's our sewing machine. We have a 1/4 inch foot on the machine. Brought our pieces over. So here's that one. Here's this one. A 1/4 inch seam allowance. I want to be sure this corner matches where we start. And I decrease my stitch length to 2.0 to minimize separation. Doesn't matter if we stitch a little off there. And so we would want to stack we have our next piece that was like this. So that goes here. And then this piece goes like this. So the flush side here and the flush side here are on different sides. And you can see, since I've rotated these around so they're right on there, this is wrong side down and this is right side up, the plaid, you can see that they are mirror images of each other, so that when you lay them on top of each other, they will match. So I just want to make sure these are still. I have a tendency not to pin. I know that's probably a bad habit. Probably would have been a good idea to pin. So see, these should be opposite to each other. You're going to trim these pieces apart with your scissors, and they're going to you're going to make sure one set we're going to press to the center, and one set we're going to press to the outside so that they nest. We want to be sure that we got the seams right so that when we look at these, they match perfectly. You know, I can use my fabric folding pen. So one side goes out. This side we're going to press out. So give it a good press. See, nice and flat. Out. Nice and flat. And then this one is going to go in. Okay. And when we put these like this, these seams should nest together. And it looks like they do. And these seams should be exactly the same distance apart, which it looks like they are. Okay. Now what are we going to do? We have the other two sides that need to be sewed on. Now those are going to be sewed on like this. So these are going to start at the top and overlap this fold. And you only need to stitch a couple of stitches past the seam line here. So one's going this way. And the other's going that way. So see how those kind of point that way? And then the other side is going to go on just like that. Overlapping here. And overlapping here. Okay. So we're going to the sewing machine and we're going to sew these seams together, 4 seams together. This one and this one, this one, this one, and the ones on the bottom. Okay. And we will lay our, this starts at, the corners match like this. So you're going to sew straight down here. You're going to start just a little bit past the seam. And you're going to sew all the way down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to take the second half and you're going to start at the other end. So this is going to match corner to corner. And it's just going to lie on top of this. And we're going to just start a little bit past that seam allowance, making sure my lines are all, my edges are right on top of each other. We're just going to sew right down here. Right, so this is what we've got. A really odd shape. Well, it kind of makes a kind of cool block, but we're not finished yet. So now we're going to sew the second one together so it comes out exactly like this. So we take our first piece, our first weird shape piece, and we add it to this piece. Remember, this seam is pointing this way, and we're not sewing all the way up. We're just starting a little bit past. And I'll show you why in a moment you don't want to sew it all the way down. Because when we sew across the diagonal, so you've sewed that half together, and now and we're just starting a little bit past the top here, making sure these sides are even. And we do sew all the way off to the matching corners. Now, at this point, we want to press the seam allowance open, but we do not want it to fold back. The other thing is we need to draw a diagonal line across here because this is our stitching, going to be our stitching line. You see this? We're going to go back to the other camera. You want to draw the diagonal line on both pieces. No, I'm going to go back to this. So we want to draw a diagonal line no if you can see this, but here is our intersection of where the stitches cross. So we want to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner through the open sides. Not across the closed side, but through the open sides. And you want to put the ruler right so this line goes straight across through that diagonal. And we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch from that line. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and I'm going to show you why. So this one's easier, the one that's pointing out, because it's way easier to see. All right. So we're drawing a diagonal line from the intersection of, nope, look, I drew this the wrong way. Didn't I tell you we're supposed to draw it through the open sides? No problem. This is a heat erase pen, so it's not going to cause us any huge disadvantage. So we're going to draw this line, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch from that line. But the first thing we need to do, because if we stitch a 1/4 inch from that line, this little piece is going to be in our seam allowance, and we don't want to have that pointing out on the wrong side. So actually the best thing to do is you can cut just right on that line on both sides. So cut the point off the plaid fabric that's on the top in this case, and the blue fabric that's on the bottom in this situation, so that that little point isn't going to get in your seam. I'm going to press this seam open. And I'm going to press this seam open. All right, same thing over here. And we're going to make sure that these are pressed open with our fabric folding pin. And this wants to stay okay. And this piece stays flat like that. Okay, so we have one piece done, all nice and flat. Hopefully they all match up nicely. Seam allowance pressed open. Seam allowance pressed open. Okay. Now these are going to lay right sides together. Now here is where you want to make sure you pin this so it's correct. So we're in hopes that these matched exactly. They look good to me. I want these two corners to match up exactly right. So if I bring a pin straight through here, so it's coming out exactly at the point, and I put the pin in here, so it's going through here exactly at the point, and I stick that through like this, that will ensure that those 2 points are exactly right on top of each other. And that went through this seam line. The 2 seam lines looked like they matched exactly. So now I can fold this back and march these down here. I can put a couple of pins in. Remember, we're sewing across a diagonal. Making sure these still match. And now does it match thick going this way? Surely if it matches that going both ways, so see how I'm making sure that these are matching up. Match the 2 lines up. These 2 edges are lined up. That should be perfect. That should be perfect. That should be perfect. That should all be flat. So now we're going to come and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the diagonal line that's going across from the 2 open corners. Not across the corners where there's fabric, but across where the 2 open corners are. And we're sewing a 1/4 inch on either side of that. So it'll be a 1/4 inch from here and a 1/4 inch from here. So let's go do that. All right, we still have our 1/4 inch foot on. So we're going to sew a 1/4 inch from this edge. From the line. 1/4 inch from where I cut that fabric. And then we're going to pull this glue back here because I don't want that to get caught in the seam. Probably should have told you to cut that off. Earlier. Oops, we should not have sewed across that pin. going to sew down this other side identically a 1/4 inch from the drawn line. Now when we take the pins out, you're going to have, oh, look at how perfect those came out. This is going to fold out like this. We need to cut down the center of it. But these matched up really nicely. Okay. Now you're going to get your rotary cutter and you are going to lay your ruler down on the previous line that you drew, cutting these apart. And then you'll go press them. And you'll have 2 identical blocks. With no purple or reds showing through those seams. And then you can trim them to whatever size or shape that you can. And then sew them together however you like. Pretty easy, huh? Thank you for watching. If you want, one way to trim these would be to lay this like this. Put your stitching, your ruler, your line on your cut line over here, or exactly on the stitch line so you know for sure it's parallel to your center. And then so that way both sides are even. And then you could cut across here like this. So then if I line the top and the bottom up, and the top and the bottom up. Just square it up. And there you have a nice block. A border block. And you can see when you put these together, you can end up with triangles and walkie flying geese, Or you can put them together this way. And you have goes this way. You can have a totally different look. All right, thanks for watching.